City of Port Richey City Council meeting Tuesday, November 20th, 2023. Invite Assembly to next okay, I'll just stand back. So, Father God, we just come to you, and we're so thankful that we have freedom. And we just went through Thanksgiving. I thank you for the mayor and the board members here and the council. We just ask for wisdom and guidance. And we thank you that we get to live in Florida, in the United States, where we have justice and righteousness and laws that protects the citizens. So, Lord, for the stuff that's coming up on the agenda, Lord, for the amendment chapters 127 and chapter 10 and the CRC and the vehicles, Lord, we know that there's impound vehicles, and we hope that people will pay to get them out. If not, then you'll give them wisdom to be able to auction them off and get top dollar out of them. And then for Christmas coming up, Lord, I hope that we get that extra day off on the 26th, but they'll make that decision. So as we do say the Pledge of Allegiance, I just want to thank you for the freedom and for the leadership and wisdom that you give us to counsel these city and the people and the things on the agenda. In Jesus' name, amen.
Madam Clerk, you take a roll, please.
Mayor John Eric Hoover,
Here.
Vice Mayor Todd McClary,
Here.
Councilman Tom Kinsella,
Here.
Councilwoman Linda Rodriguez,
Here.
Councilman Bill Colombo,
Here.
City Attorney Nancy Meyer
She was here.
is present, not currently at the dais at this time. City Manager Matthew Cobbler.
Here. Thank you. First up is approved council minutes. It's really echoey in here. Is that better?
Just in case, if you want, if you're not going to use them, turn them off and just single, just to work with what we got right now.
Okay. It sounds really loud up here. You guys good out there? No?
Turn the volume down, Jeff. Turn the volume down a little bit.
We have no volume up here.
Somebody's got a volume.
My wife says that all the time. No.
How's that? Good? Okay. Looking to approve council minutes?
Motion to approve council minutes?
Second.
A motion second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, comments from the general public. I have one signed up. Danny Fields, welcome.
My name's Danny Fields, and I'm at 8114 Little Kid Avenue. And again, I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. We did have Thanksgiving meals that went out on November the 23rd for senior nutrition with the churches to give to those who shut in and pray for them and have food and just fellowship for those who would be alone, like elderly and veterans and stuff like that. And we will be doing that again on December for them. Meals even on that day. There's some of us will volunteer to go out. The food will be delivered. Usually we give like 800 or 900 meals out, and we usually get in there and out by like from 10 to 12, and they split up the routes. So, and it's just a way to give back to the community. And we know that coming up, and that will be at Jerry's at the Oasis. There's a website, www.transformationpasco.com, and you can find that information on that site for anybody watching. And then we will have this Saturday coming up on the 2nd from 11 to 1 at Waterfront Park, 8119 Old Post Road, Christmas Story. And so again, I'm grateful to have the permit and have the law enforcement and the fire department, the churches and residents out there. We will be giving toys away. We'll have food, fun, and games, and I'll keep it short. Thank you, and blessings in Jesus' name.
Thank you, Dan. That's all I had signed up. Anybody else like to speak? Mr. Mueller, welcome.
Dave Mueller, 5439 Blue Point Drive. I'd like to thank the city for following up and finally knocking down the shed on Quist at the corner of Old Post that was listing into the canal. They dealt with that next up on the agenda is dealing with their seawall and whatever else is going on with that house. I appreciate you guys taking care of that. People are watching. People appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Anyone else? Show of hands. See no hands, we'll move on to comments from the city manager. Pass it to Mr. Coppola for his comments.
Thank you very much. Had a number of items here, and I submitted to you in writing on your desk so you can follow along. On November 15th, staff attended the CRA plan update kickoff meeting with Inspire. The update is supposed to be taking about 6 months to complete. During the process, there will be opportunities for the public as well as the board of the CRA to provide comment. We're tentatively scheduling the consultant to attend the January 9th, 2024 Community Redevelopment Agency meeting to discuss the plan update and get input from you. Working with State Representative Yeager's office, we submitted an appropriations project request for the construction of 1 million gallon water storage tank and administration building for the water system. The request was for approximately $1.8 million of a $2 million estimated project. We'll be working with State Senator Hooper's office to submit the same project plus 2 more they'll allow us to submit through the State Senate appropriation request process. One of the things that this kind of being new kind of sprung upon us, I think it was my second day, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
I would like to be in a position where we've had a chance to talk about what projects you want to put forward. So kind of being flat-footed this time, I kind of focused on the infrastructure and the needs. I know that what we have to do, we can get the state to pay for the majority of it. It's going to save our ratepayers and our residents a lot of money. So that's what we're focusing on. The other 2 projects we're looking at are related to stormwater system improvements, pumping, and such as that. I'll have a little bit more detail on those before the next meeting, and I can get that out to you. The city received notice that we did not receive funding for the sunshades at Waterfront Park through the T-Mobile Hometown Grant Program. That, I guess, leaves a question up to you what you want to do going forward. If you'd like to, we could easily submit this for the next quarter to see how it goes, or if you want to discuss it some more and maybe go a different route in funding for the sunshades. Staff met actually today with FDOT to discuss proposed golf cart crossing at Grand Boulevard and US 19. The representative provided some input that if we can do that would reduce the overall cost of the project. We are in the process right now of getting submissions from engineering firms to do preliminary design, as well as final design and going through the construction process. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks we should have those, I believe, in total. Again, their suggestions could reduce should reduce some of the costs associated with the project. We really won't know until we get into the preliminary design phase of this. The on-board meeting with Thrive is scheduled for December 5th, 2023. Thrive, of course, is the firm that you approved to help transition our IT environment from the current vendor to Thrive. And hopefully with that, make staff more productive and make the future programs that we're going to be doing and maintaining a lot better and less costly down the road. I'll be meeting with the CAC member Lori McLean and representative from University of Florida IFAS Pasco Extension Office to discuss the CAC's community garden concept for the parcel the city acquired at 5219 Miller Bayou across from Olsener Park. I think, again, before I got here, you had some discussions that was a direction you wanted to go. We're also, I believe, getting submissions from the engineering firms to look at laying that park out as well. So this meeting will be kind of important to get their understanding of what they're looking for, so we can then relay that to the engineers so we can have a good layout for you to start looking at. On 11/17, met with the staff and representatives of Ayers and Associates to discuss the packets for the Cody River landing improvements. There were a number of questions that I know the city attorney opined upon as well. To get that out, the last update is we have, I think, maybe one or two more questions that have to be answered, and we should be able to do that hopefully tomorrow, so we can get those bid packets out within the next couple of weeks. And lastly, just covered that I've been meeting individually with you all. I still have a couple of members to finish up on, and I think, in my mind, the next step after completing this initial meeting with everyone is to start looking maybe towards a goal-setting session. So that's all I have.
That's good. Thanks. With that, I'll turn it over to comments from the mayor and city council. Start with Vice Mayor McCleary.
I have nothing at this time.
Okay. Councilman Casal?
The one thing I like to see, yes, we got turned down for that funding for the sunshade for that playground. I really like to see the city continue to push for it one way or another. Again, I experienced how hot that equipment is during the summer when I had my grandson there. And I've noticed since then, especially during the summer, there's not too much activity on that playground, and probably because the equipment is extremely hot. And I would love to see us move forward and continue to push for that sunshade. We take a look at Newport Richie. They got children all over the place because that entire playground area is covered. And I think we will get more use out of our playground if we're able to do that. And that's all I have.
Thank you. That's Councilman Colombo.
Yes, a couple things. Glad to see you're meeting with the representatives on the storage tank and stormwater issues, but recent history, it's kind of tough going that route. Even if you get it through the House and the Senate, a lot of stuff gets line itemed out by the governor. I know last year, like probably fully a third of what passed through the House and the Senate got line itemed out. So great if we get it. Stormwater, if we're actually doing things to reduce stormwater from going into the natural waterways, it's way easier to get money for that. If we're just cleaning swales and stuff, odds are pretty slim. The only thing I'd mention is I see your meeting time on your update here. You've got the dates for December are wrong on the website. You have like the 5th and the 12th. You're a week ahead. You're 2 weeks ahead of time.
Okay.
Oops. That's okay. Let you know. I just happened to. Well, first of all, I was looking up this meeting just to make sure it was the 6 o'clock meeting. And then I looked at the dates on December meetings. I go, nope, that's not right. So no big deal. That's all.
Thanks. Councilwoman Rodriguez?
I have nothing right now, thank you.
Thanks. Let's start with going to the Jaeger sponsoring one of our appropriations. I obviously brought it up before, but obviously don't ask. You won't get anything. So I definitely want to get an ask in there.
Always ask.
So I'm glad we got, and I did confirm with his office that that one is in the works. Did you have to find out what the date was for the Senate?
They still haven't passed on what that date is.
Okay, so hopefully we'll get those in there. Like I said, they may not yield anything, but if they do, all the better. And like I said, hopefully these guys can. One of the things I will state is I don't think this has been done a lot in the past. I know when I talked to Senator Hooper's office for the 5 years he's been in there, we've never had an ask. So they were happy to see that. So I'm hoping that they'll be able to at least push for us to get some funding. And I do apologize for that late notice. I did have Sal put that list together of, it's kind of haphazard, just basically get all our stuff with what we had on the plate. I was hoping that would just be a matter of forwarding that to them, but there's forms and stuff you have to fill out. So that's when, of course, Matt got here. We found out that wasn't good enough just to send them an email. We had to actually get them fill out forms. So he had 5 hours, 6 hours or whatever to actually pick what he thought was best. So
There's always a form.
yeah, so definitely appreciate your effort on that. Um, let's see. Oh, I want to also wish everybody, hope they had a happy Thanksgiving. Public, staff, and council members. It was a great time. Weather was nice. I hope you all enjoyed that. I wanted to, there's a couple things I'm going to put last, just got a little bit of discussion behind them, but so the next one I'll cover, I wanted to thank Ashley. I don't know if you guys noticed this when you went out to the agenda, but she spent some time to actually take and make it more digital friendly as far as rolling through it, instead of having to go, if you're looking for an action item, go way down, they're actually tabulated so you can jump right to that specific point in the agenda. And I talked to her beforehand. I'm just going to have her, if you wouldn't mind, just kind of show what you've done. Actually, she's improving upon this, but she spent all the time, and I think it's going to make things a lot easier. And I'm actually, since we have a light agenda tonight, I'm kind of piloting on my laptop to be able to do it. So this is kind of what it looks like. You just see on the left-hand side, all the agenda items are there. You can click on it, it goes right to them. Whereas before, you didn't have any of that.
No, it's a big improvement.
Yeah, huge. So I want to thank her for
We
that.
used to have that like 3 websites ago.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Don't know how that got lost.
Yeah, they had to rebuild it. It's a long story.
But anyway, so that was, I wanted to point out that she did a good job on that, and she's continuing to improve that. And I think Planning and Zoning Committee is actually going to have a little more, not just the actual bookmarks, but if there's several items within an item, those will be bookmarked as well, so you can really jump around.
Once upon, I know I'm interrupting, but
No, go ahead.
Sal probably could tell you more about this, but once upon a time, the agenda was actually searchable. You could search up just keywords and it would find it in the agenda. That was really nice.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I don't know what it would take to do that now.
Ashley's like gray.
Yeah, I don't think that was just basically Adobe at that point, so yeah.
So, but thanks, Ashley, for doing it. Let's see. I went for a walk on Thanksgiving Day with my dad, and we went inside the park. I don't know, walked through there or whatever, and kind of went around the trail or whatever. But I happened to notice, and this may be a question for you. You've been a while. Seemed to be a fountain. There used to be a fountain in the lake there.
Yeah, it was just sort of an aeration sort of thing, I think, yeah.
I saw a black puck, and it looked like a fountain. I don't know if it's something we can look into to get that operational again. I don't know if it at least get the cost on it. In a waterfront park.
No, in that little lake thing?
Yeah.
When you pass the playground and all that, there's a big lake there.
Yep.
It looked like there used to be a fountain there.
They get clogged up because we have one in our lake and
Yeah.
it kind of breaks occasionally, well, frequently, and they fix it. So,
Yeah, I think originally that piece of property was designed to be a marina. That's why there's that little inlet there. And I don't think it actually used to connect with as well as it does now. It didn't flush that well. So I think the aeration was what they were interested in, to keep it from getting stagnant.
Well, I just thought if you check into it and see if it might be something low cost. It really make the area look nice. I'm looking at there. Okay. I want to get an update on code enforcement if there is one.
So we currently are bringing on a couple part-time individuals to help get us through this time. We've also put out into the internet through our different sources for the full-time position. And I know they're getting ready to schedule interviews with a number of applicants. How many, Sal, did we get?
Applicants, 4 to 6 qualified applicants
Yeah.
with code enforcement experience that they'll be doing interviews with.
So we'll be doing those probably within the next week or so. And look to bring someone on full-time as quickly as possible. At the same time, we're still reviewing how we're going to go forward with that. So this position, when we hire this position, we'll still only have one full-time code enforcement officer.
Okay, good. Excellent.
Can I ask a question about code enforcement?
Not now, but I'll give you an opportunity a little bit.
turn your mic off.
Sidebar, turn off the mic.
Thanks. Okay. Okay. The last two things. Let's start with this one, and then I think the next one after that might take a little discussion. But Whiskey Joe's reached out to me, John Biro, and I forwarded the message back to him and city manager. and he came in several council meetings ago to ask about parking for Whiskey Joe's down there. The email he sent to me today, actually, with pending sales and stuff going on, he's going to lose his lease on the additional parking he has on one of those lots, and so he wanted to see if the city has any interest in possibly either leasing those 2 lots that we own there on the corner, or sale. I know we talked about before, and we're kind of in a hold pattern with that until we figure out what we're going to do. I didn't know if you guys wanted to discuss possibly doing something lease parking if it comes to it or whatever. At least give me an answer, say that we're absolutely not interested in doing that. It makes sense if we could lease some dirt and get some income coming in for it, at least temporarily. Might be a good use of that asset, but I didn't know what you guys' thoughts on that, or what the legal things were if we need to put it out for.
Did they, I mean, this is kind of out of our realm right now, I mean, at this point, but did they lose? I mean, they have the property by the restaurant, they have the other property up by, Bill Dogs.
Yeah.
That's their required parking for their restaurant.
Yeah, they have their own parking lot.
Right.
I don't know with their.
They said
Not
that,
to get into the conversation, but I think it's convenience parking across the street, and he's looking for.
Yeah, he's looking for
parking,
convenience
not
parking.
code
Is that okay?
requirement.
Because otherwise, that would be,
But right now they lease.
that would be a variance.
They lease.
that's not,
That gentleman
that's
should not
not what the
approve their
email said.
CFO without code required parking established by.
That's not what the email said that we've got.
Oh, did he say it to everybody?
Yeah, it,
Oh, okay,
it
sorry.
said that he was losing that supplemental parking.
Across the street, not the one over by Gill Dogs.
Oh,
He owns the one.
He
that
owns the one by Gill
He
Dogs.
owns the one by
Oh,
Gill
okay.
Dogs. The one across the street is convenience.
I did not understand that.
And the one by Gill Dogs was a variance, but quite frankly, it shouldn't have been granted in the first place, but it was granted.
Well, if by consensus, can we put it on an agenda to talk about what we maybe
I would
entertain that? Or?
prefer the city manager.
Yeah.
Negotiate it, go through it, and come back with a proposal before we start talking.
What he feels is appropriate for
Totally
the city.
agree with that.
Yeah, that's really, like
Well,
I said, it's kind of out of our wheelhouse.
Ask him to pursue it, I guess. Then. Yeah, perfect. I just want to make sure that we're going to address that one. Like I said, if we don't want to do
Whether
anything
we
with it,
do or
fine.
not,
Yeah.
that's what we're asking him to do, whether or not we should consider leasing it or not. Not to lease it, but
Right.
what are our options to
Yeah,
do
there's a lot
something
to
or
look
nothing.
into it between her and him and everybody else. So before it even comes to us, let them work it.
Yeah, and that's why I asked. Just if you guys are okay with somebody looking into it. Perfect. And then the last thing I have is going back to the jet ski rental business. And of course, you guys saw the email stuff on that. Where we left that was that planning and zoning is going to look at it and as a possible change to the code. Before the meeting, I talked to Nancy and Matt about bringing this up. I went to lunch with Matt last Friday, and he happened to be there, the owner of that business, or whatever, came out and talked to us. And so, obviously, you guys know the situation with that. I want to see if there's any way, if you guys would, I guess, take your pulse on this. What are your thoughts on making changes to that code? Because if we just sit back and put it through the normal process, planning and zoning won't have it on this coming agenda. It'd be on the next one. So that's a month and a half. And then whatever change would come of that, they'd propose it to us. Obviously, we're going to talk about tonight whether we have a second meeting in December. So that's going to push it well into, if we change the code, obviously 2 readings, and it's a long time, and that part of his business is not functioning right now. I know we can do things in the meeting here to help fast track that process. If we could take a minute to talk about what we all think. Is it something we think we would like to possibly change and allow? Or if it's definite no, we're not going to open that up, then at least he knows that, where to go. Or if hope is coming soon, at least he knows that as well. So let's kind of put that question out to you guys, how you feel about that particular scenario in the rentals. And I'd take it obviously more than just jet skis, because technically you can't rent anything motorized down there unless it's a John boat or a pontoon. So I just want to open it up.
My opinion is, we've been talking about looking at the WOD in general, and this should just be part of that, to be picking and choosing little places. I'm not inclined to go there.
I think it's
It's
a
my
process.
business. I'm only 1 to 5.
I think, I agree with you, Bill. We're picking and choosing. parking over there, and now this over here. We have a huge district that we need to encompass everything, and if we start picking and choosing, it's gonna be disheveled. There's gonna be no cohesiveness. It needs to be looked at in a whole, not as this business and that. It needs to be looked at in a whole, because that's how we are going to be portraying this area as a whole.
Yeah.
So I don't think picking and choosing is appropriate for the business as well as for anybody else at this point.
If I could add to that, and of course I come from an IT background, we have what they call agile development. And so in the past, when you develop application stuff, it was a big effort and lots of time goes until you finally get a product. Well, with agile development, you kind of incrementally do things along the way, and it gets things done as opposed to waiting for a big final product. So there might be, and I get your point, obviously, that sometimes it's better to look at things as a whole. But as we have these individual things that come up, maybe it is in the sake of an agile type environment, and this is obviously agile is not a government norm, right? It makes a lot of red tape and stuff that has to go through. But maybe if we could somehow do things like that in an agile type environment, we could get some incremental things done, and we take out, because the people that are coming to us with these issues, kind of squeaky wheel gets the oil type thing. Again, not necessarily an approach for everything, but I think as things are identified, if we could try to address those as they come in, as opposed to, okay, we'll look at that and put it on a back burner, and 2-3 months down the road, we finally get something done, because it pushes people to do things we don't necessarily want to do. If we could provide some help. So that's kind of my thought on it. Again, I respect your opinion. Obviously, there's methodologies that make sense. Maybe we could do some kind of hybrid of that and look at certain things that maybe we do need to address this incrementally as opposed to as a whole. So, did you guys have any comments on that?
I agree with Mrs. Rodriguez. If the city has an issue with one business, it probably is affecting others. So I think it's something that between our building official or city manager, they look into it as a whole, determine what changes, if any, are needed to move forward. But I don't like the idea of catering to one business and one business only. I think we should do this, citywide and have this affect anyone else who may have an issue with this. But I just don't like the idea of just singling out one business and do the favor for them.
Yeah.
I don't like that idea.
And let me clarify, I'm not asking that we would cater to any specific entity. I guess there's a problem has been just because one business brought the problem, and I'll use the jet skis, for example. That was a jet ski thing, but it also would affect any rentals that Freedom Boat Club may be renting. And so it's more of a general thing. It's just brought to our attention by one individual, not that we're catering to that individual, but they were saying, hey, this individual has pointed out a problem to us. Do we want to address it incrementally or not? Because it could blow up into a larger problem. So I just want to clarify. I'm not asking to clarify.
Then again, we need to have our building official, our city manager, and our attorney work together on this and see as a whole what we need to do as a city.
The waterfront overlay district is a zoning code, and it's done with a vision in mind of what you want to happen in that area. So it needs to be addressed in its entirety. So again, going back to what you're saying, individually doing this, individually doing that, individually doing this. Well, you're not following any plan at this point. You just have a couple of business owners that want to do something. So do you want that place to be full of jet ski rentals? Maybe, but it's part of an overall plan.
And to piggyback on that, when you were saying, I'm sorry, Todd, if we say, okay, let's do for this business, it's okay to, well, who's to say that other jet ski businesses rentals are not going to pop up? And then who's going to police that? Because I understand this gentleman says he does eco tours and nobody's going to be hot rodding around, and I understand that. But who's to say that somebody's not going to open a jet ski rental place a couple docks down and there is no eco tour and they are hot rodding around Miller's Bayou and those residents are not happy because their boats are flying all over the place because of the wake. So I think it does need to be looked at as an entirety. I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate that gentleman's dilemma. But I think, to be fair to everybody, we have to look at the entirety as opposed to the individual.
Yeah, I respect that. Did you have anything?
My thought is, with any zoning change, whether it's the overlay district or an R1 or R2, R3, the process is always the same. It has to go to planning and zoning. It has to be delineated by the administration. Then it goes to planning and zoning, and they all go through the same process. I'm hesitant to even talk about this one specific issue because we're not giving planning and zoning and the rest of the process their due diligence. So if we try to shortcut that, it's a little different than like a fencing change or something of that nature. We all agree that should go through planning and zoning. But when you're changing a business entity or something like that, it actually opens up a can of worms that the person to your left may not want to deal with necessarily if you don't go through the proper process all the way through. So to shortchange that and say, well, yeah, all four of us, we love jet skis, we want to see jet skis throughout. Well, there may be another business owner who said, wait a minute. Well, not only did you shortchange the process of this, you didn't give me my due diligence to look at this. There's a whole lot of other elements that could open up. So take the individual issue aside of whether there's jet skis or not jet skis or whatever that is. They got to go through the process and come through the process to this. 3 months for a change in a code in any district is still warp speed. You try and do that in Tampa, you're going to be doing that for 3 years. It's just the way they work. We're still very much faster than most other areas. So I understand this person's dilemma. There's mixed feelings on that as well, but even going through the proper process, that's still a fairly ready response if it goes in his favor or it doesn't go in his favor. But we can't shortchange the process of going through zoning, getting the feedback, doing all that, and doing it the right way.
Yeah.
That's
No.
my.
Yeah. And I guess I didn't explain myself very
I
well.
was just saying, and you brought up a point that, excuse my voice, sorry, and I'll do my best tonight. You brought up a point that I failed to bring up when we were talking about it earlier. Because of what we're talking about, it's not just a code provision. It is a land provision. It needs to follow that step. It needs to go to planning and zoning. So there's that not hearing isn't quasi-judicial hearing, but that time for everyone that affected either side of it, this particular establishment, other establishments, citizens, all have that time to come out. So we don't want to shortchange that process, but as your code allows for. That's my fault for not.
Yeah, I know.
discussed it.
And I want to clarify yet again, I apologize. Sometimes I think faster than I talk and vice versa, but just depends on which one's going faster. I never intended it would bypass planning and zoning. It needs to go
By
through the
even
process.
commenting on it, we're bypassing planning and zoning.
That's a great, and I appreciate that. Thank you, Todd. You're right. I was incorrect. You're right. Thank you.
Yeah,
And that's my fault too. I apologize.
yeah. It's so, but just to tell you where I'm coming from is instead of it still go through that process. I just see what the feel was if we had a kind of a feeling altogether that this is something we're interested in changing. Let's just leave it at that. How we change it, what restrictions we put on it, if it's something we're interested in changing. I mean, we've kind of said we kicked it to planning and zoning, which we don't really, they don't know where we stand on it. Maybe, and
Nor should they.
nor should they. But then I guess if we're not interested in changing it, it's kind of a waste of planning and zoning's time, I guess. If we are interested in changing it, then maybe it is.
Our opinion right now is immaterial
Right.
to planning and zoning's hearing.
I think which we talked about before, and I can't remember if it's been said here tonight or not. This was discussed before that the whole district would go before P&Z for a relook. I think that's where we leave it. It's on the list to go to P&Z for them to look at this, let them look at the whole section as a whole. I'm sure they're listening. I'm sure they've heard stuff. I'm sure they will get emails like you guys do when people see their agenda. So they'll have the same information you have, and they can talk that through when they bring something to you.
And I'll keep that in mind if future things come up. And again, as people reach out to me with complaints, I just want to bring it before this board to try to facilitate things happening. So the procedure, I understand that. Make sure in the future that we won't discuss it here. I'll bring it up, kick the planning zoning. So I appreciate the training there. That's all I have on that. Thanks for y'all's patience. Moving on, comments from boards and committees. Was there any? Seeing none, We'll move on to the consent agenda. Looking for a motion and or discussion.
Motion for consent agenda.
A motion second. Any further discussion? Anyone from the public like to comment? Seeing no hands put to the vote, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, item number 3, first reading of ordinance number 23-693, amending chapter 127, article 4, section 127.90. I'll pass that to Nancy for.
I'll read it by title. Ordinance number 23-693, an ordinance of the city of Port Richey, Florida, amending section 127-90 of article 4 of chapter 127 of the city of Port Richey Code of Ordinances, modifying which building materials may be used to construct a fence and ensure open space remains, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing for the effective date. As you know, this has been here a few times in discussion. Hopefully, I captured the discussion correctly, and this is the final edits that you had requested, and it's just on page 16. That's the only place you'll see the edits. That's just one little section you have to look at.
Well done.
You're very welcome there.
Any discussion? I'll jump in real quick. I had a couple things on this. So if we go to the part where it says the fence should have at least 50% open space,
Where are you looking at? Aaron?
this page 16,
16? Okay.
where basically the red
Okay.
stuff is.
Yep.
So this is obviously a change. We talked about this, and I'd made a similar statement then. The 50% I have a problem with, just because there's several products out there that, and again, I'll use mine as an example, but there's more than readily available. The pickets are 3 inches. The spacing is 2 7/8. So you're talking about 1/8 of an inch. And if you take, and even if I back up, even if you take 3-inch pickets, 3-inch space, you spread that out, the posts are normally 4.5 inches to 5 inches, I think. So if you're looking for 50%, you can't do it, even if you got equal size pickets and spacing. So I think we're way too close here. We're going to cause some problems. So I would suggest we drop that down to say 40%. That would accommodate for posts that are larger than actual picket material, and it wouldn't necessarily the 1/8 of an inch difference on the spacing. Again, if you look at these pictures, you see through that just fine. So our intent here is to have visibility, not to make it so difficult to put a fence up that you got to buy special material. I mean, I know you can accommodate with 50%. Don't get me wrong, but there's a lot more options out there. And what I don't want to do is put residents through the ringer to try to find the perfect fence to fit this code when we don't necessarily have to restrict it that much. That's my thoughts. The other part of that, I didn't really like the way this was worded, just was a little confusing. It says, in no case shall any fence have an open area between planks or other construction material greater than 4 inches. And I think what we're trying to say is that the gap and the fencing material cannot exceed 4 inches, I think is what the intent there.
No. That's actually a reference to the state code, correct? That you cannot have a gap in between pickets larger than 4 inches, so people can't stick their something for.
Yeah,
So this is
It can't get the head through and get stuck.
right. I get that, but the way it read to me, have an open area between planks or other construction material greater than 4 inches. I assume the other construction material was talking about the actual picket itself, but maybe it's just talking about
Pickets,
between.
it's posts, it's anything.
So it's saying
It can't be
between
right.
planks or whatever they are. So it's kind of confusing to me.
It's whatever, you can't have a gap greater than 4 inches per state code. He's just kind of mirroring the state code on that. That's the way they.
Is that the actual language, I guess, state code?
It's close to it. Basically what I'm saying, I think where you're getting confused is, it could be a post, or some will just die right into the corner of the house. So, yeah, it's a play on words, but it's not the picket and the gap. It's the gap between the two. It's so a child can't stick their head through there and get stuck in the fence.
And by construction material, then he can look at the house, he can look at whatever the fence is tying into, however that all works. That way, if you limit it to just pickets, then I can say, well, here's my last picket, and then here's the post all the way over here, and there's a 2-foot space in between. It's that, so he can say, no, it's construction material, whatever it is.
Okay. right? All right. It's just a little confusing to me, and I'm just kind of a layman type guy. I'm sure people read that and might be confused as well. So anything we can do to,
Well, he can clarify that then, when he goes out to see them.
yeah, true. Those are my comments.
I'm done commenting on this one.
I will just note that it was brought to my attention that the first sentence of subsection 2, where that red language is, there's a comma at the end of that first sentence that should not be there. So I will strike that.
Because otherwise you can't have you can't have anything but a 4-foot fence on any residential property. That's what that little comment is.
Yeah, that is true.
Good
That
catch.
wasn't what we were looking at,
That's
but,
what we were talking about
Yes.
our whole time.
so I will strike that in the official version.
Yeah,
Should
it's been
this
around
become,
at
the
this point, you know,
should we get there?
We know.
Yeah, because then it separates the
Yes.
canal by,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not good.
no.
It's just a little comment.
They make it a.
Until the lawyers get a hold of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Motion to approve first reading of ordinance 23-693, amending chapter 127, article 4, section 127.90,
With the amendment noted.
with the amended note.
Second. Have a motion second, further discussion? Anyone from the public like to speak? Seeing no hands, I'll put it to vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Motion carries. Next up is item number 4, recommendation to amend chapter 10, article 4 of the Port Richey Code to include seawalls. I'll pass that to Mr. Copper for introduction.
On October 5th, 2023, the Planning and Zoning Board reviewed chapter 10, buildings and building regulations, article 4, piers, docks, and other marine structures. The board recommends council amend article 4 to include seawalls, thereby allowing the building department to address the maintenance and upkeep of seawalls in the same manner as the maintenance and upkeep of piers and docks located within the city of Port Richey.
So if I may, this came to you because your code requires for me to draft an ordinance for your review. You direct me. The planning board can direct me when it comes to a zoning matter. This does not fall in that purview, so I need direction from you if you are interested in doing the amendment that has been recommended by planning and zoning to include seawalls, to get that direction to draft the ordinance.
Motion to direct the city attorney to prepare the necessary ordinance to amend chapter 10, buildings and building regulations, article 4, piers, docks, and other marine structures to include seawalls.
Second. A motion second, further discussion?
My concern here is, good idea, but I come at it from sort of a Fourth Amendment kind of standpoint, as in, the docks are on submerged lands. They're essentially over state waters. Seawalls are on private property. Now, in my opinion, code enforcement or building official just doesn't go walking onto private property. So I just want that clarified at that point.
We
Now,
will not
maybe
violate
they
any
see
court-
something, they're gonna have to arrange something or do something, but this doesn't give permission for, staff to pull up to somebody's dock and go walking around on their backyard looking at their seawall.
So what happens if, and this is just a clarification, because I don't know the answer to the question. I live in the water and I complain about his seawall because it's fallen down. But they go to him and he won't let them on the seawall, on the property to inspect it. How do we handle that?
It can be seen from other places.
You can blame on your
You can
property.
invite him onto your property, you can look across and see that it's derelict.
I mean, you can see it from the water,
Yeah.
not where you are. Well, arguably, you could put the job over the water.
Okay, well, and that was my question. I just
Yeah.
wanted to know,
My main thing
I
is
just
like,
wanted to know, we're gonna put something in place. Is this enforceable
Right.
is my question.
Yeah,
I
I was
mean,
gonna say,
I don't want city staff going around there with a pipe sticking it down to see if the tiebacks are still there.
If the concerns, no, obviously, no one's Fourth Amendment rights were violated. The code and building official will follow all the right rules, all the laws. This just allows them to have the ability to enforce maintenance of seawalls that are becoming derelict, like they would on a dock, a fence, anything that they can legally properly see. It won't change.
So what happens with seawalls that are currently in disrepair and then this comes into, like the grandfather type thing, you can't, like with fences, that fence has been there for 100 years, so we can't do anything because we changed the code. How does that affect the current?
So if it,
That's a good question, actually.
not grandfathering non-conforming uses come into effect if you have something that's a legal use, and the only reason it becomes no longer legal is a change in the code. Like my fence is 6 foot, we changed the code and say you only can have a 4 foot fence. It was
We
legal.
almost did.
Like we almost did, yeah.
We almost did, but we caught the comma. It was legal at the time. The fact that we don't have a provision to allow inspection, that we now have a provision to allow inspection, doesn't mean that the derelict condition of a fence or any item was a legal use.
Okay.
It just didn't give the building official the number to put on the paperwork for us to send it to the code enforcement.
Okay,
To
so
enforce it.
we're given, they can still,
Let's then go
I
forward.
understand from here forward, if my dock becomes a disrepair, they can, but if something's been, they still have the authority to do something just because, okay.
And the reason I thought that's a great question is because
I come up with them once in a while, Eric.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Fair enough.
Riprap is obviously an option to do your seawall, and not seawall,
Defaulted.
you know, fronts. So if a seawall. Do I need a gavel?
I'm talking to the. Throw it at him.
Yeah. I'd like to-
She's salty.
I talked to the police too.
I'm gonna close their eyes for a second. If a seawall caves in or falls down, kind of turns into riprap, somebody could make that argument, I guess. So
I would talk to that man before I ever answer that question, because I don't even know what riprap means.
just big rocks. It's
Okay.
broken concrete is your wall.
Right.
So,
Maybe it would,
I don't think we should
yeah, I'm not gonna
open that
opine.
Can,
discussion right now.
Yeah,
that
I'm not
can
gonna
of
opine on that
discussion.
until we have that situation.
okay.
I'll talk to you about it later, but.
Yeah, I just didn't want to put something into place that we had no
Well,
way
and
to
the other side of that
police it.
is, as you mentioned, going forward, you definitely can't. So even if it is the situation with the fence, and like say we forgot the comma, and we left that comma in there, and there was a legal use, and if your changing code makes that now not conforming, so maybe you can't fix something in the past that you wish you could, but going forward, your building official now has full authority to do what you need him to do.
All right, very good,
But
thank
I
you.
don't foresee that to be an issue for the inspection.
Perfect, I appreciate it, thank you, Nancy.
Anything else? Anybody from the public like to speak? Cindy, welcome.
Cynthia Malin, 5446 Blue Point Drive. I think when you're taking into consideration about the seawalls, I think you need to see, like, are they probleming the canal? The canal comes in as city or county owned, so there's problematics with that. So I think that they should consider, a lot of these different things when they're talking about the seawalls. I know you said it was like the seawalls on private property, but it intrudes into a public property. So that's an issue that I think you should consider. Just looking at the whole thing when you're deciding about bringing that into the codes. I think it should be a good thing.
Go ahead.
I just had one more question. Bill brought up a good point with the seawall is obviously on the ground, but then the waterways is, what is that? The waterway is not. How are we allowed to, since we're a city and that is not city, the dock?
Touches the
Like the
ground.
dock, going into, I'm sorry?
It touches the ground.
It touches the ground, okay, thank you. Yeah, we're learning something. Put it back
But
on.
I mean, going to her point, over the years, especially back in the day, there were folks that did in fact kind of like keep pushing their seawall out,
Yeah, that's against code now.
Yeah,
You can't do that.
well, even now, I mean, without actually doing a survey of the property in certain places, for you to say that for someone to say the seawall is intruding out from the property line can't be proved without a survey.
Well, the new seawall, though, a new seawall falls under your jurisdiction. So when they put in a permit, they still have to go to a permit for him for a new
No, I
seawall.
understand, but I thought she was speaking of some existing
Oh.
seawalls that were already obstructing canals. Maybe I'm wrong.
This is different.
Yeah,
than
so
that.
that's-
This is so anything new, you can't keep stepping it out anymore because he says, no, you
Yeah,
gotta,
that used to be
you
a
actually
regu-
have to be behind.
Actually, down around like where Whiskey River is, they did that a bunch of times over the years. They just went out further, and other areas, especially the older parts.
That's an old,
That's back in the old days,
that's an old trick.
Yeah.
Sherry?
Hi, Sherry.
Floor is yours. Sorry about that.
Chair.
We're feisty tonight, excuse us.
It's early, that's why.
It's okay. As somebody who doesn't have a seawall, doesn't really know that much about it, but things that I've heard, the purpose of a seawall is to hold back water, right? Are we taking into account, is there going to be like a height requirement to try to keep out? Because I know in our neighborhood, water comes over our supposed seawalls all the time. So if we take into account the rising waters that are coming over time, are we going to have say, hey, if you're putting in a new seawall, it has to be so high to try to keep all those waters from coming over the seawall and into everybody's properties? We've got a lot of that, so just wanted to.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? We'll move on. We got a sorry.
Motion in a second.
We got a vote. Sorry. Yeah, let's vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Now you can do something
I'll
else.
do something else. All right. Item number 5, Citizens Advisory Committee CAC resolution discussion. I'll pass that to Mr. Coppler for introduction.
At a previous city council meeting, the city council instructed the city attorney to review and revise existing resolution number 4-11 that defines the role and responsibilities of the Citizens Advisory Committee, CAC. At the August 8th, 2023 meeting, the council directed the city attorney to include in the revisions: 1, applicants must have 1-year residency; 2, specify that it is a 9-member committee; 3, include language for the CAC to pursue direction from the council if asked; and 4, include language that the CAC is to promote community activities. At the October 5th, 2023 Citizens Advisory Committee meeting, members reviewed the proposed resolution and provided comments to council.
If I may.
Sure.
What you have is, so the previous proposed resolution, along with the original resolution, went to CAC. They did have a discussion. They did provide comments. And there were some, I think the only substantive comment, and I'm sorry it's not redlined. It wouldn't cooperate. I don't know. I couldn't fix it, so I do apologize, Councilman Horn. But I will tell you that, let me find it. You have, I couldn't get anything to work. I have the prior version on page 32 is where it's the prior version. It's highlighted. I did use highlighting. So page 32 is the original version of Resolution 2311 I brought to you. The Resolution 2311 that starts on page 29 is what is the product of what we talked about, what the CAC provided input to me for. So it's all within one-year resolution. So the only substantive change from what the council meeting on page 32, paragraph 2, I'm trying to read my notes, 1 second. That's the one. So if you go to page 30, the only substantive change I believe that was made is on item number 17. There was conversation about free and excused absences and some back and forth about that. What the CAC had asked that we do is make it just the three meetings without notifying the chair. Phone call, a text message. There's nothing specific. A little less strenuous than what I had originally put in there. I think that's the only substantive change. But they did ask that initially everything that you would find in the original resolution that created the CAC, resolution number 411, all those provisions are now included here in resolution 2311. So there's really only one place you have to look to see all the policies and procedures that are in effect for the CAC. Hopefully that was as clear as it sounded.
I'll jump in. I have a couple things to point out. It's duplicated, so number 3 and number 7, CAC membership is open to the public. We're really emphasizing that. In case you missed it, here's the end. I figured it's oversight, no problem. On item number 15, obviously a spacing issue, but when it talks about the vice chair shall take the place of the chair and perform chair duties whenever chair absent or unable to act, do we want to include also if the vice chair and the chair is not there, that the senior person, I think it's the way it's handled now, the senior person takes it. We'll clarify that.
It's formed by
That's-
resolution, so we can do anything we want.
Yeah, so I'll probably just add that, just to be clear. Let's see, the other, on number 22, all advice and comments of the city council shall be in writing. Now, I know traditionally, it's always been, well, you've been doing it, but I think when Angel was originally started, it's before Angel, but anyway, they came to the podium during boards of committee comments, and they did it, never got anything in writing. So do we want to add or in public meeting, or do we actually want it in writing?
Right.
Council, the in writing provision is in the original resolution, so
No,
that's why it's still
understand.
there. And I did, when I read that, kind of went, huh, because I don't think that's the practice.
Yeah,
So we may
that's not
want
the
to
practice.
modify.
Prior to being on council, I always went to the podium and discussion happened, and then we did what was pointed to us,
Yeah.
council, so.
I mean, I think it's good to have it in writing, kind of like the comments from Matt now are in writing as well, if they had something to introduce, but we haven't had that in the past. I mean, it's supposed to have been like that in the past, but we haven't adhered to that, I guess, so. Strike it, or just, or add or public comment, and or both, or something, or.
If you're gonna add, or if you're gonna add or public comment, then just strike it. It's, what's the point?
Well, if we want it in writing as well.
I understand, but if you say in writing or verbally,
Well,
then what's the point of bringing it up?
I don't know.
That is the only provision in here that kind of closes the circle of what the CAC, how the CAC gets back to you.
But if,
Understanding it's not following that rule, I think we want something to close that circle, because you're saying, here's what we'd like the CAC to do to help. CAC has their procedures, they need some mechanism to report that back.
if we report it back either via podium or via me up here, it is in writing in the minutes.
Yeah.
True, yeah, I think it's probably sufficient.
So, because what is in writing is also, malleable. It's changeable as to the discussion on the podium. Just because they ask for it, maybe that's not what the CAC gets, but it's a form of it. And that's through the discussion up here, and it can go back to them. Otherwise, if it's in writing, then we have to get back to them in writing. It's going to be a long and tedious process. So I'm okay with striking that,
Well, you have a
but having it,
But we do have a secretary taking minutes to begin with, Darrell, and on the CAC.
yeah.
So you got minutes.
That's what,
From
yeah,
them.
yeah, and here as well, but I'm saying is, if, let's say they ask for A, and then the council says, well, we want you to do A and B, that has to go back to them
Yeah.
in, that type of thing,
I'm
so,
just saying, as far as reporting back goes.
yeah. So, I'm okay with it in
Just
being,
be a strike 22.
yeah, personally, I am, yeah, because it is official by coming here, and it's in writing in our minutes.
Not to make this a longer discussion, but I think though the value of it being in writing is in case that from a meeting to coming here and presenting it, something is forgotten. You know, if it's captured in writing, all the board members can look at it and say, yep, that's what, our advice is. And then it can be conveyed on to the mayor and council, where, again, something may be lost and you could have another committee member, I'm not saying that it would happen here, but you could have another committee member come and say, well, that's not what our advice was, it was this. And so I think it's something that if they're transmitting it to council as advice for an action for you to look at, it would be better to have it in writing.
We have a meeting next week, why don't I take that back to them, because I think that's going to elongate the process, because they do it in writing, then it comes to us, and then it's in the process, the way you said it, they put it in writing, that it has to stay in CAC until the CAC members approve it, say, yes, that's what we want to go to council. So this meeting in November, they say, I want A. It gets put in writing and has to go back to CAC in December to say, yes, that's what you want to bring to council. Is that how you want it? Is that how you think? Is that how you see it?
Well,
Because the CAC won't
Yeah.
see it until the next official meeting.
I guess what I think probably should happen,
If you want to do, that's what I'll do, but.
when we have boards committees speak, that there's a prepared statement from the CAC in this case, and then they would read that we'd have it read to us or whatever, but then they would it would be submitted in writing with the
But I
minutes.
understand also other boards and committees, Ashley's there, where she's,
Right.
she's taking minutes.
Not at CAC.
I know, not, I mean, that's
But
the
the others.
point I'm making, okay? So like, when you bring up other boards and committees, well, we've got our city clerk there taking minutes, we've got written minutes. So, I mean, that brings up another point, I felt, going back to day one, CAC should be brought, that should be recorded and put up on our YouTube page, people should be able to see it. The only way you can see what the CAC is doing is come to a meeting.
Yeah, and I
It's
agree
the
with
one
that
thing we have.
as well. I think that ought to be,
I've said that since day one.
that
Doesn't have to be, yeah.
that is something we would need to address in ordinance, so. a
No,
resolution.
no, well, it's a resolution, but no, that's not something that has to be in a resolution. I just bring it up since we're talking about the
No, I
city.
agree. I think all the meetings should be.
Let me ask this, going back to number 22, it says all advice and comment to city council shall be in writing. What I've seen, you definitely report back, this is what we're doing, this is what we talked about, but it hasn't been any kind of advice or feedback for specific action that I can remember since I've been here.
When
That may be more limited to what this is talking about, more of a directive from you to CAC, from council to CAC, and CAC's response to that directive versus this is what the CAC is doing, update kind of thing. That may be a different
Yeah.
than what's anticipated.
When you guys did the Cody River Landing
Mhm.
naming,
Mhm.
just put any writing on that, or you just came back and?
We just did it. No, I mean, really, we came up with it. We decided that WOD was not a good name. We did not ask permission. Well, telling you the truth.
Well, WOD never was a name. It's just a zoning thing, just 'cause people.
Just because you know that does not mean the other 2,900 people know that, Bill. Everybody, WOD, that's what it was always called before it was called.
You came up with a name, cool.
I didn't come up with the
Well,
name.
you being
Thank
the CAC.
I propose we go back to 7 o'clock, we're all too.
Where'd you
Who
find that?
knew?
Bill. So, and then we put the survey out and I kept coming and then we just did it. So, and then we came back and said, this is what we came up with, and y'all said, good. Then it went to the county and the county said, yeah, we like that. Everything was hunky dory. So, no, that was not directed by the council. That was an initiative that was, started by the CAC members and we ran with it.
That might be the difference in what so, paragraph 22 is envisioning is when there's a directive from council to CAC to do something or to report on something, and you want that back in writing, so it is memorialized correctly that there's no miscommunication, misunderstanding between the CAC and council. What we're getting mostly from CAC, from what I've seen thus far, is just updates. This is what we're doing. We're planning on getting a meet and greet. We're doing these things. It's not really council directed. So maybe those really are two different things. So I think the provision saying about in writing is specific to advice and comment to council, not just updates from what the CAC is doing. Does that make sense? Lawyer parsing words, but that's kind of where I'm.
So if it's an action item that we need approved, which we did, which we did anyway. I mean, we did the whole name thing and we brought it back to council. Now, they could have done nothing with it and sat on it and said, no, well, that's very nice, but thanks for all your hard work, but we're not gonna, we're gonna keep
That
it
might
at
be something more that would
called
be
the
in writing
WOD.
versus, where we had a meeting and we talked about, like, I think right now that they're talking about doing the murals, okay?
Yes.
Maybe when that gets moving, if that really becomes a thing, that becomes an action item. That may be something in writing specific so the council knows what's going on versus just the report.
Okay.
I think that's the idea behind 22.
Can we clarify that instead of advice? Can we
I will come up with magic words.
Magic words, not lawyer words.
Yep.
And then the only other thing on that I had was on 23, any conflicted, for instance, this resolution, this supersedes them. Just for, I guess, procedurally, do we have to, I guess, leave the other resolution open and this amends, or can't it just say, it seems like, I know it was there before because we're kind of merging the two, but now we've actually merged the two. Do we really need to?
The only reason I can do that, the only reason I did not do that is just for the history, the whereas, the reasoning that you find in the initial resolution. I didn't want to incorporate in this because it really didn't make sense. And I thought that would be good for those when we all move on and someone comes back and looks at what's the CAC, why did they do this? It gives that history.
Yeah, I guess the only thing when you read it is then it behooves you to go back to make sure that there's nothing.
Right. And
Pretty standard and.
it's very normal when you don't completely rescind something, to say if there is any conflict between the original and the new prevails.
Okay.
But I think ultimately, for future reference, having the original resolution with the original reasoning and thought behind creating the CAC is still there for people to see. But I can absolutely morph it into one.
I'm personally, I'd be inclined to go that way.
I can
just
morph.
have the one resolution.
Okay.
Makes it
Well, it's
less confusing.
Well, it's cleaner, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's what I thought we were doing,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, bring it back. I mean,
Yep.
you know, it's not good. Whatever we do, it's a resolution, so it's effective as soon as we pass it.
Yes.
So for her to bring it back to the next meeting and blend them together, I don't think that's gonna cause any issues for the CAC.
Yeah.
Do you think?
And it's still be the second reading.
No, there is. It's
only one
resolution. As soon as we,
resolution.
Oh, just this.
yeah, this isn't a code change, it's a
Yep.
resolution.
That's it.
As soon as we say yes, it's immediately effective, just like that.
Magic. Executive orders. Anybody else have any comments?
Actually, you have to wait till he signs it. Like that, plus the
Well, I won't do that.
At this point, we're gonna start at 8
After he
o'clock.
signs it, then he can go ahead.
Stop. This one's not on me.
Anything over here? Anybody from the public like to speak? Mr. Mueller? We don't have a motion second, by the way. That's right.
You don't need to, it's just giving me direction.
Okay.
Dave Mueller, 5439 Blue Point Drive.
You didn't, yeah,
One of our discussion items at the last meeting centered around this very issue. I don't believe in your packages you ever received the CAC's minutes. And Mr. McClary was there, and he provided a solution to that. And having, the minutes read into the council meetings at the committee point in time, so that those would be there. But the fact that we do have a secretary and minutes are taken and minutes are submitted to our clerk, in which case, if a recommendation is made by our committee, that would provide her that ability to bring that up to council. So in effect, we are doing a written request where there's, recommendation coming out of the committee, moving forward to council. Council needs to make a decision on this. There is a process, and I don't believe, like I said, I don't believe you're getting the minutes in your packages, or if they are, they're on the website and somebody's got to read it. But we're trying to make it convenient for everybody. I think it might behoove us to look at the ability to put the minutes in your package in the section called boards and committees. Thank you.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that.
Idea, I forgot I even had it.
but do all the boards, do planning and zoning, do them all, don't just do CAC.
Right, yeah, all of them.
Do all of them.
They are all.
They're not in the packet.
They're not there.
No, they wouldn't be. They're on the website, because the council doesn't approve CAC minutes, the committee does.
Right.
But they won't be there for reference.
But under board and committee reports, it can go in,
They can, yeah, if your directive, I can put all of them in there, once they're approved by the
I mean,
board.
they only meet once a month, so it's really.
Other places I've been, all the minutes of all the boards and committees go to council and they accept, the minutes. So, I mean, I think that's something we could start doing, put it under the,
I don't
boards and
even know if we
commissions.
really have to accept it. I mean, just if it's in the package, like.
Yeah, we see them. We're aware
Accept
of
or
them.
received, yeah, maybe that's the better word, is received, move on.
I think it's a great idea. So what do we need to do to
Nothing.
close that? Nothing on this?
I
Do we
have
need
no
a
direction.
consensus to do the
No, I'm
minutes?
good. Because the minutes is not me, so that's up to you guys. I think that would just be a directive from the agenda man, which would be the city manager.
Okay,
Yes,
Want me to come help
as soon as I can.
I'll come help you do both.
Yes, once the minutes are approved by each board and committee, they'll be included in that next, agenda packet, depending on the timing, they'll go into that next council packet.
We just, no, item number 22.
Just a point of clarification.
he had some time left, didn't he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a point of clarification to that. if a recommendation comes out of that report, then that recommendation ought to go forward out of the minutes to council. That's your written.
The agenda comes from the city manager.
I get that. I'm just saying is this is a indication that something is moving forward and needs to have their approval. So someone has to communicate that. I'm just trying to connect the dots because we tend to have dots that aren't connected around here. Thank you.
I'll make comments that, Dave. So when those, I can't speak for the rest of it, but I would read through those and then I would bring forth my comments to make sure that we take time to talk about it.
Well, I mean, the minutes don't, they don't supplant a report. I mean, Linda's here, we'll have the meeting, we'll have the minutes. If there's things in the minutes that need to be pointed out, she can point it out. You don't have to point it out. I mean, I'm just saying.
Could, anybody could.
Well, sure, anybody could, if they really.
But if they're there, at least we'll know about them.
Like I said, other boards, P and Z and stuff, they got their own minutes.
Okay, moving on. Item number 6, surplus of impounded vehicles. I'll pass it to Mr. Cobbler for introduction.
This request is for the surplus of 7 impounded vehicles that have been stored in the impound lot of the police department for 90 days or more. The registered owners were sent notifications via registered mail and have not responded to retrieve their vehicles. The Port Richey Police Department will send these vehicles to the Tampa Bay Machinery Auction, as is our standard practice. TDMA will auction these vehicles through their standard process.
Looking for a motion and or discussion.
Motion to approve surplus of impounded vehicles.
Second.
Motion second, further discussion?
Where do you get all these homemade trailers? Every month it comes with more homemade trailers.
Yes. Anyone from public like to speak? Seeing no hands, put it to vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, item number 7, discussion on cancellation of the December 26, 2023 City Council meeting. I'll pass it to Mr. Cobbler for introduction.
Yes, as was kind of spotlighted before, the second meeting in December will fall right after Christmas, and we felt that you should think about having that meeting. Not, just kidding. We would request that you cancel that meeting.
I would say that traditionally, we've always canceled the second meeting in December. A lot of staff are on vacation, and in this particular case, Monday is Christmas, and then the next day is a city council meeting. Not much.
Who am I in break tradition?
Not much is gonna get done.
45 minutes, maybe we should just cancel December altogether.
I second that. Was that a form of a motion?
If that's something we do every year, is it maybe, can we just?
Well, we do it regularly. Well,
Only do one in December?
Basically, the charter says we have 2 meetings per month on the second and fourth Thursday. So instead of trying to muck around, that you
Change
have
the
to
charter,
change the
just
charter
do
at
this.
that point. That's hard to do.
It's easier to do this
It's
than
easier
just to
to
change the charter.
cancel.
I get it.
Cancel meeting, yeah. So anyway, I motion to cancel the December 26th meeting.
Second.
A motion second, further discussion? Any public speak? Oh, boy.
Can't take a joke.
Yeah. You want to come in and tell us about your Christmas presents, don't you? Yeah. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up, item number 8, discussion of old business. Let's see, did anybody have anything to talk about on old business? I had a question on the next park ramp fees allowance.
That is on my desk.
Okay.
I still need to review that.
And then on the refuse and garbage pickup, where are we at as far as collecting the language? All that done, is it something we can bring up?
Oh, just look at the nightmare going on down in Newport Richey,
I
right?
know, I watch it. They get a lot of good information out of that meeting. Are we still researching that, or?
That's my understanding. We're still
Okay.
looking into that.
And we're
Is
still
that
watching
something?
Newport Richey.
Yeah, we're seeing how Newport works out for Newport Richey, then we'll get back to you.
Okay, and then of course, the reminder everybody, obviously, town hall meeting on the 5th, next Tuesday, 6 o'clock.
Remind everybody I will not be able to attend that.
Sorry?
I'm not able to attend the
Okay.
town hall meeting. If you want someone from my office, I can put some coverage. I just need to know
I
ahead of
think we're
time.
okay with
I
that.
think we need.
I think we can get ourselves in enough trouble without you.
Yeah,
I want to be there for the fun.
we'll do our best.
Well, there'll be a recording.
Oh, go perfect. Perfect.
And, oh, and then got Sunshades Waterford Park. I guess that's status is grant denied. All right. So, okay. That's all I have for this. Look for a motion.
Motion adjourned.
Motion second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.